Dr. Benjamin Schmitt, Senior Fellow at the University of Pennsylvania. We're going to talk about NATO, and I would like to ask you about the NATO's role in providing the energy security in Poland, especially in the field of the security of our strategic infrastructure, like offshore pipelines and so on.
Yeah, so NATO has a massive role to play when it comes to critical infrastructure protection in the Baltic Sea region, in Central Europe, both onshore and offshore. We've seen since Russia's large-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, but even before that, critical infrastructure become attacked in the offshore environment, and now to a greater extent even in the onshore environment, where we've seen, starting with the January 2022 Svalbard telecommunications cable that was cut after being run over 130 some odd times by a so-called Russian fishing vessel, the Melkart 5. And that was, of course, in the run-up to the weeks before Russia's large-scale invasion of Ukraine. And you might say that's not a military facility, that's a commercial satellite downlink station. But of course, we saw satellite communications, whether it be from next-generation internet providers like Starlink, SpaceX's Starlink facilities being used by the Ukrainians to a great extent on the battlefield, or geospatial imagers like Maxar and Planet. These are all things that I think the Russians knew would become critical assets, and even though they're commercial entities, something that we have to keep in mind as well. Of course, flash forward, after the large-scale invasion, we saw the pipelines of Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 become sabotaged in September of 2022. We saw the Baltic Connector pipeline and a number of telecommunications cables near them get severed and destroyed in October of 2023. And of course, we've seen onshore attacks go on already in October of 2022 to critical rail lines in Germany, all the way through sabotage that we've seen, whether it be arson attacks, whether it be cable cuts, whether it be electricity interruptions in places like the UK and France and Germany and Poland and the Czech Republic and Finland and other places as well. And what we've seen here is that attribution is absolutely key. And this is a role that NATO can play, right? To help build out the information capacity to allow for governments to quickly identify and attribute who is actually behind these attacks. And we've seen attribution take place in Poland, in the Czech Republic, in France, and in the UK, where people have actually been arrested that they have shown have been hired by Russian military intelligence, the GRU, to carry out these low-level attacks. And these are not Russian citizens that are doing this. These are low-level criminals, effectively, that are being hired online for small amount of money by the GRU, whether they be Ukrainian nationals, Belarusian nationals, Polish nationals, etc., and sent to do these low-level, basically critical infrastructure attacks. We need to do a lot better in our attribution process. I think Germany in particular does. There's been no attributions for any of the dozens of attacks we've seen over the past few years. And that's going to be really crucial to deterring Russia, if it is behind most of these attacks, and I think that it is, from doing this in the future, because it doesn't allow for this hybrid, unattributed zone of threats to continue to take place.
Did the NATO's policy in this field we're talking about has changed after the 2022 or not? And what are the perspectives of it?
NATO has absolutely changed its approach. It is prioritized critical infrastructure protection to a level that I think it should have done much earlier, but thank goodness it's doing it now. It, for example, started a critical undersea infrastructure protection cell at NATO headquarters already in 2023. Early 2023, which is basically raising the policy level of this, and then just this year has opened its operational arm at MARCOM in the United Kingdom, the Maritime Command of NATO. And what that's going to do is really bring to bear all of NATO's capabilities to have this, this overlap between military security, commercial infrastructure security, local law enforcement, and having all of that data synergized and brought together, and have a place to bring in and deter these attacks through monitoring and things like this, where commercial entities in the past were basically on their own to do a lot of their own critical infrastructure protection. Now they need to be cooperating with law enforcement and national militaries all the way up through NATO to make sure that all of the data is brought to bear to make sure the perpetrators of these crimes do not get away with it.